Hey, I'm Nick from Portainer and welcome to the Portainer for Kubernetes series. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the process of creating an application within the Portainer UI and just give you an overview on how easy it is to get an overview of your cluster and everything that's going on within it and how you can manage all of these resources as well. So as you can see here, I have 3 Kubernetes environments that I've got in my Portainer server here. So we're just going to go into the first one, which is Kate's agent. So if I click into here, it will take us into our Kubernetes environment. And now straight away, we get an overview of what's going on in this environment within our cluster. So we can see we have 7 namespaces, 8 applications, 7 services, and a few other resources as well. So for creating a simple application, I'm just going to walk you through creating a namespace first. Here you can see the namespaces that already exist. So we've got default, Ingress, and NFS storage. We're going to create a new one here, and we've got a couple of ways that we can go about doing this. So we can edit with a form, or we can create from code. So let's say you already have a manifest that you like to use, you can use that. Or if you want to deploy via a Helm chart, you can do that as well. We're going to jump into manifests and Helm charts in a future video. For now, we're just going to add with a form. And here we can create the namespace. So let's just call this one here test namespace, because that's what's happening here. And now we'll cover what we can see on the page here. So we've got annotations. So let's say if you wanted to use any annotations, you can do that here. And anytime you see the little question mark next to a name, you can read more about it and it will take you links to our documentation as well. So if you're curious on what annotations are and how they work within the Portainer UI, we've got our documentation here. Now, I'm not going to add any annotations for this service, for this namespace, but as you can see here, it's as simple as just adding a key and a value. Now, also adding resource quotas within the Portainer UI is super simple as well. So if we want to add a resource quota for this namespace, all we have to do is toggle this here, and now we can set the resource limits. So let's say I wanted to set a memory limit on this namespace, let's say maybe 1 gig. We can do that just like that, or we can set the value here on the right hand side. Now, I'm not going to set any memory requests, CPU requests, or CPU limits. You can see if we don't set a value, they are set as unlimited by default. Now, also, if you had any registries set up that you would like to use within this environment, you could set these here and select them to be attached to this namespace as well. At the moment, I don't have any registries attached to this this environment, so we're just going to leave it how it is. And then at the bottom here, we've got the summary. So we've got Portainer will execute the following Kubernetes actions. So you get a bit of a breakdown on what's going to happen. So we're going to create a namespace called test namespace, which makes sense because that's our name at the top. And then we've got the resource quota that's going to be created, which is what we've just set here. And it's going to give the name Portainer RQ test namespace. So if you're all happy with that, you can create namespace, click down here. And that's how easy it is to create a namespace. So just like that, we have it here, and we can see that it's been populated down the bottom here, so it's part of our list now. Now also, if we had other users within our Portainer server, we could go into manage access here, and we could give them access to this namespace if they'd like to use it. If you've got users or teams that you would like to attach, you can do that here. Again, we'll go into this in a future video more in depth, but just letting you know that's where you can configure this. Now that we have our namespace, we're going to create an application to use this namespace. So if we come into applications here, again, we've got the same sort of process. So on the right hand side here, we've got a filter called namespace. So if I went all namespaces, we could see all the applications that are running in our cluster. And then if we've got the test namespace, we can see what's running under this namespace. At the moment, there's nothing, which makes sense. Again, you can add with a form, or you can create from the manifest or a Helm chart, as I mentioned before. We're just going to add with a form. And now what we're going to do once this loads is we can select our namespace at the top. So we've got default, Ingress, NFS storage, and test namespace. So we're going to go with test namespace. Now we'll give this a name, which is called Nginx. And we're going to use the Nginx latest image, just like that. And then under advanced mode, Now, under notes, we can add any notes we want about this application. Let's just say if you had other teams or anything you wanted to just make a note about that they can see, you can add that here. Again, we've got annotations for the application. We're not going to add any annotations here. And if we want to add a stack name to this, so let's say this Nginx application was part of a bigger deployment, a bigger stack, we could associate its name here with those other deployments, but we're not going to do that. This is just a simple one-off deployment, but you've got that option here. And then as well as environment variables, if you want to add environment variables, let's say your deployment was needing them, you could click add environment variable here, and then you can set it, say something like port, and then you'd put the port value. We're going to leave this just blank in this case. And that's the same with config maps as well. If you had any config maps that you'd like to add, you can add them just like that, as well as secrets, persistent folders as well. Now, since we have a resource limit on our namespace, we need to set what we're going to set the resource reservation for our application here. Now, by default, it's just setting it at 128 megabytes. Let's just give it a little bit more. So let's say 256. And since we set it at 1 gig, you can see the max we can give it is 1 gig. So 256 is fine, and everything else has unlimited counts, but we're not going to set those. And then we've got our deployment method. Do we want it running multiple instances of this container, or do we want it across all our clusters, right? All of our nodes, in our cluster. So you get that option here, and it's really easy to set. So let's say I want 2 of this instance count, I can select 2. And then if you wanted to also enable auto scaling, super easy to do as well. So we can say, hey, look, we want a minimum of 1, maximum of 3, and it's going to auto scale based off of the CPU usage hits 50%. So we could set that if we wanted to. I'm not going to worry about that one and this one. And then how we want to publish this application. So if we want to expose it, if we had a service, an Ingress service, we could publish it via the cluster IP services. We've got the node port service if we want to expose it via a node port, or if we had a load balancer, we could set it here as well. So let's say if we wanted to expose it via a node port, we could create the service, and then we've got the container port, so 80, and then we can set a node port if we want. If we don't set anything here, we're just going to get a node port. Not going to worry about this one in this case either. And then under the summary, we can see what's going to happen. So we're just going to create a deployment named Nginx, and it's going to set the memory resource limits and request to 256 meg. So that's what we set here under the memory limit. So that makes sense. So now I can deploy this application, and it's going to deploy, and we can see it's here. It's already replicated. We can see that it's healthy, and it's replicated 2 out of 2. And we can see the name, the namespace that it belongs to, the image that it's using, the application type. Now again, remember, we didn't give it a stack name. It didn't belong to any stack, so there's no value there. So we can go into this application, and now we can see some details about it, right? So we can see the resource limits. Again, we can see what it's replicated as. If we come into placement, we can see the placement values, and if we want to edit anything, or the containers, if we want to see any details about the containers, we can as well. Any events that are happening with the application, so we can see everything that it's done. It's pulled the image, no problem, it's created and started the container. And it's done that twice because we've asked for it to do it twice. We wanted 2 instances of that container. And then under YAML, we also have the full YAML breakdown of the application as well. And you can always edit the application if you like. So let's say if you wanted to make a change to anything on how you've set it up, the resource limits, anything like that, we can come into this space here. And let's say if we wanted to add any notes again, or if we wanted to come down here and change the memory limits, we can do that. Or if we just want to change the instance count to 1, we can do that and then update the application. I can update it, and we're going to see that's been updated. We're now just running 1. So that's how simple it is to manage applications in Portainer. And just one other thing that's really good to look at for now is that for the container itself that's running the application, we can see the stats of the application. So we can see how it's going, and we can have the refresh rate. So this is every 30 seconds, we'll see what's happening. We can see that at the moment on its first report back that it's using 3.6 megabytes of memory, and it's pretty much doing nothing in the CPU usage. But after the first update, we should see some spikes start happening here, and some updates coming through. And then under the cluster panel, you can see a high level view of your cluster, how it's going, its memory usage, CPU reservation, CPU usage, and just everything, its general health wise. And you can also break down to the individual stats as well of each node. So let's say we've got our worker here, we could check the stats on just our worker. And again, this will update over time. So we can see that this is using 804.9 megabytes of memory. And at the moment, it's using about 3% of its CPU. So this is how you can manage applications within the Portainer UI. Very straightforward first cover in this video. It's just so you can understand how easy it is to create resources within your Kubernetes environments, creating namespaces, managing and creating applications, and just getting a high-level view of your cluster. In this series, we're going to cover more deeper topics within how you can use Kubernetes in Portainer and how you can use it to manage all of your resources as well. But for now, we're keeping it simple with just those topics, but I look forward to seeing you in the next video.